My wife announced at dinner, "I'm getting my tubes untied. My ex-lover wants kids now." Assuming I'd raise them, I said, "Follow your heart." Then I filed for divorce and froze my assets. Her lawyer called me 2 hours after the surgery. If anyone had asked me that night how my marriage was going, I'd have said rock solid. 15 years with Clarissa, 12 married, 0 drama. Our life was the kind of suburban sitcom people pretend to envy. Decent jobs, 2 cars, a nice house with a mortgage we didn't cry over, and a vacation fund that actually existed. We didn't have kids by choice, and Clarissa was the one who made that choice sound romantic. "Let's travel. Let's live," she said back then, 5 years into marriage. And then she got her tubes tied. Her idea. I was there holding her hand through recovery, joking that we were officially factory closed. We even got takeout sushi that night and toasted to adult freedom. So yeah, I thought we were solid, which is why over spaghetti one random Thursday night, my wife dropped a bomb that made me rethink every life decision I'd ever made. "I'm getting my tubes untied," she said just like that, like she was announcing a new haircut. I laughed mid-bite, thinking I'd misheard. "Come again," she smiled, twirling her fork through the pasta like she was auditioning for a cooking show. I said, "I'm getting my tubes untied." "Why in God's car-bloated name would you do that?" I asked. She dabbed her mouth with a napkin. "Because Trent wants kids." "Trent," I repeated, slow and suspicious. "Trent, who?" She blinked innocently. "My ex. You remember him?" Oh, I remembered him. Tall, skinny, thought his unfinished tattoo sleeve made him edgy. The kind of guy who'd call himself an entrepreneur while living in his mom's guest room. I hadn't heard that name in years. I set down my fork. "Clarissa, please tell me this is a prank." "No prank," she said cheerfully, sipping wine. "We've been talking for months. He realized he made a mistake ending things. He wants to try again and have a family with me." For a second, the world went quiet like the universe itself had hit pause to watch me implode. My brain just blue-screened. "So," I finally said, "Trent, your ex wants kids, and your solution is to undo a medical procedure you begged me to support 5 years ago." She nodded, utterly calm. "Yes, I thought you'd understand." "Oh, I understand plenty," I said. "But walk me through this insane logic. You want to have kids with Trent? Does that mean I'm supposed to help raise them? Because unless I missed a chapter, I'm still your husband." She smiled like she'd rehearsed this speech. "It doesn't have to be complicated. You make good money. And Trent's getting back on his feet. We could raise the kids together. He'd be like a fun uncle." "A fun uncle." I almost choked. "A fun uncle with DNA privileges. Perfect." I leaned back in my chair, staring at her like she'd sprouted antlers. "Clarissa, do you hear yourself? You're telling your husband that your ex wants to rejoin the program and I'm supposed to fund season 2. She frowned. "Don't be dramatic." "Sweetheart," I said slowly. "You just told me you're planning to have a baby with another man while still married to me. Drama's kind of built in." She sighed, annoyed that I wasn't clapping for her emotional evolution. "I thought you'd be supportive. You've always said you want me to be happy." "I did," I said. "But I was assuming your happiness didn't involve untying surgical knots and resurrecting Trent the unemployed." She crossed her arms. "You're being small-minded." "Small-minded? No, Clarissa. Small-minded is thinking this pasta is dinner. What you're doing is staging an emotional hostage situation." She rolled her eyes and muttered something about me not getting it. I picked up my fork again, twirled some spaghetti, and decided to go out with grace or sarcasm. "Clarissa, you should absolutely follow your heart." Her face softened instantly. "Really? Absolutely?" I said, nodding. "Follow it wherever it leads you." She smiled, that same radiant smile she used to flash when we booked a beach trip. "Thank you, honey. I knew you'd understand." "Of course," I said, standing and grabbing my plate. "But when your heart packs up and moves in with Trent, don't expect my wallet to come along." The smile vanished. "Excuse me?" "You heard me," I said, rinsing my plate in the sink. "You can follow your heart, your dreams, your nostalgia, but not on my dime." She slammed her fork down. "You're being cruel." "Cruel?" I laughed. "Clarissa, I paid for the factory shutdown. Now you're asking me to sponsor the grand reopening under new management." Her face twisted in disbelief. "You're making this ugly." "No, I'm just refusing to make it stupid," I said. For a long minute. She just stared at me, tight-lipped, stunned, maybe even embarrassed that her pasta confession hadn't gone viral for bravery. Then she said, "You know, Trent listens. He supports me." "Yeah," I said, grabbing my jacket. "Because he's unemployed. He's got plenty of time to listen. That's what happens when your workday ends before breakfast. She glared. You're jealous of what? His free time or his delusion? Her nostrils flared. You'll regret this attitude probably, I said, walking toward the door. But at least I'll be regretful and solvent. I left her there at the table, half-finished wine glass, half-eaten pasta, and a look that screamed, I didn't plan for this to backfire. I drove around for an hour just trying to make sense of it. I mean, who does that? Who wakes up one day and says, you know what would spice up my marriage? A baby with my ex-boyfriend. When I finally pulled back into the driveway, the house was dark except for the glow of the TV. Clarissa was on the couch watching some reality show about polyamory. Irony died that night. She didn't look up when I came in. I'm sleeping in the guest room, she said. Perfect. I said it'll be less awkward when you start video chatting your baby daddy. Grow up, Luke. She snapped. You're overreacting, Clarissa. I said, if I told you I wanted to start a family with my ex, how would you react? That's different, she said immediately. How? Because men don't get it. Trelation, logic doesn't apply to you. She grabbed her blanket and stomped upstairs. I just sat there in silence, staring at the TV. Some guy on the screen was crying because his wife wanted a third partner. I almost laughed. Buddy, I muttered. At least she warned you before the spaghetti. That night, I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard her voice saying, he wants to try again and have a family with me. Each word echoed like someone dropping bowling balls onto my sanity. I thought about every vacation, every anniversary, every dumb couple selfie we'd ever taken, and realized all of it could be undone over a bowl of marinara and misplaced nostalgia. By 3 a.m., I'd made up my mind. This wasn't a midlife crisis. This was a full-blown demolition. Clarissa wasn't looking for love. She was looking for an audience. And I was done being the co-star in her soap opera. So the next morning, I made 2 cups of coffee, one for me, one for the woman who was about to regret ever mentioning Trent, and waited for her to come downstairs. She shuffled in wearing her silk robe, phone glued to her hand, already Googling tubal reversal success stories. I handed her the mug. Morning. She smiled faintly. Thanks. I didn't sleep much. Me neither, I said. I was busy wondering how long I've been married to a Lifetime movie plot. She sighed. Luke, don't start. I'm not starting, I said. I'm just recalculating my exit strategy. Her eyes narrowed. You're not seriously thinking about leaving over this? Clarissa, I said, you're planning to make babies with your ex. If that's not a good reason to leave, I don't know what is. She stared, genuinely shocked that I wasn't playing along. I thought we were stronger than that. We were, I said, until you turned dinner into a DNA announcement. She stormed off, muttering something about me never supporting her dreams. And that was it. The switch flipped. The woman who once argued about Netflix shows was now fighting for the right to get impregnated by a man who probably still thought Bitcoin was a personality trait. I took my coffee, went to my office, and opened a new document titled Exit Plan. Step 1, call Howard, my lawyer buddy. Step 2, don't let her see it coming. The way I figured it, if she wanted to start a new family, she could do it without my name on the mortgage, my paycheck in the mix, or my sanity in the line of fire. Because no matter how many Pinterest quotes she posted about following your heart, the fine print was clear. Some hearts lead straight to financial ruin. And I was done sponsoring hers. The next morning smelled like betrayal and burnt toast. Clarissa was in the kitchen, laptop open, typing away like a woman on a mission. I didn't need to look over her shoulder to know what she was doing. She was researching tubal reversal success rates. Meanwhile, I was in the living room researching something equally life-changing, divorce lawyers. The contrast was poetic. She clicked through medical forums like she was shopping for a spa package. This one says 80% success rate if the clips are removed cleanly, she announced like she'd just discovered the cure for cancer. Good for you, I said, sipping my coffee. Just make sure you find a model that accepts emotional insurance because I'm out. Clarissa didn't laugh. She was too busy taking notes. There's a private clinic in Atlanta that does it faster. $1,800 for expedited surgery. Expedited? I asked. Are you expecting a coupon for babies? She ignored me. 5 minutes later, she printed a form and slid it across the table like she was closing a business deal. They just need your signature. Payment has to be made up front. I picked up the paper, pretending to read it. So, you want me to sponsor your ex's comeback tour? Her head snapped up. It's not like that. It's a medical procedure. You're my husband. This is our journey. No, Clarissa, I said. Our journey ended when you decided to invite Trent to the after-party. She crossed her arms. It's our money, Luke. Our money doesn't cover your midlife sequel, I said. You don't see me asking you to fund a yacht so I can relive my bachelor days. Her eyes narrowed. You're being impossible. I'm being realistic, I said, standing up. If you want your tubes untied, that's your business. But don't expect me to foot the bill for a science experiment sponsored by nostalgia. She slammed the table hard enough to rattle the salt shaker. You're trying to control me, Clarissa, I said. I'm trying to control my bank account. 10 minutes later, her phone buzzed. I heard her whispering in the corner, voice rising like she was auditioning for a courtroom drama. A minute later, she marched back in, face red. Greta's on her way. Of course she is, I said. Every bad idea of yours comes with a family audience. Greta, her younger sister and self-appointed moral compass, arrived 20 minutes later in yoga pants in judgment. Luke, she said, not even greeting me. You can't refuse to pay for her medical care. She's not curing cancer, Greta. She's curing boredom, I said. You're heartless, she hissed. No, I said, I'm bro-conscious. There's a difference. Clarissa folded her arms, glaring at me like I was the villain in her Hallmark movie. I'll just use my 401k, she said. I hope you're happy. Ecstatic, I said. That's one less lawsuit to worry about. She stormed upstairs, Greta following like a backup singer in a bad music video. I could hear muffled complaining, words like selfish, toxic, and emotionally abusive being thrown around. I turned up the TV just to drown them out, which felt metaphorically accurate. Later that afternoon, my phone buzzed. It was Howard, my old college buddy turned lawyer. I texted him earlier and his response came fast. Document everything. Everything. I texted back everything. He repeated. No face-to-face fights. Keep it in writing. Crazy writes its own evidence. I grinned. Solid advice. So, I stopped talking to Clarissa directly and started texting her instead. Every wild thing she said became a legal artifact. Clarissa, 8:42 a.m. This is your fault. If you'd been more emotionally available, I wouldn't have reconnected with Trent. Me. 8:45 a.m. Noted. Emotional unavailability now officially cheaper than surgery. Clarissa. 9:12 a.m. You're punishing me for wanting happiness. Me. 9:15 a.m. Just ensuring your happiness has its own payment plan. She didn't respond after that. Probably Googled if sarcasm was admissible in court. 2 days later, she came home with a folder labeled pre-op. I was on the couch eating cereal straight from the box. Don't mind me, I said, just enjoying my last week as the irrelevant husband. She set the folder down. You're such a child. And yet, I said, I'm still more mature than the woman trying to reboot her ex with my cash. She ignored me and called someone on speaker. Hi, Janet, she said. Yes, my husband's being difficult about the payment. The name hit like nails on glass. Janet Whitfield, her friend, and worse, a divorce attorney. Janet's voice came through the phone. Professional and smug. Clarissa, if he's withholding financial access, that could be considered coercive control. I nearly choked on my cereal. Coercive control? Lady, I'm just saying no to funding the world's weirdest love triangle. Mr. Morrison, Janet said sharply. You're legally obligated to support your wife's medical needs. She's medically fine. I snapped. Her only condition is chronic poor judgment. Clarissa gasped. You're cruel and your crowdfunded chaos. I said, good luck, Janet. I hung up. 30 minutes later, my phone buzzed again. Unknown number. Sir, this is Dr. Patel's office. Your wife listed you as the financial guarantor for her procedure. I smiled. Oh, that's cute. Please remove my name. I'm allergic to irony. By that night, she'd done it. Borrowed from her 401k. I overheard her on the phone telling Greta. I can't believe he's making me do this alone. Alone? I whispered from the hallway. You've got a backup sperm donor and a lawyer. That's a crowd. The next morning, I came downstairs to find her sitting at the table scrolling through baby name lists. If it's a boy, maybe Milo, she said aloud. Or Finn. I poured my coffee and nodded. Go with oops. It's gender neutral and historically accurate. She didn't laugh, but I did. That afternoon, I texted Howard again. Me? She's going through with it. Borrowed $8K from her 401k. I think she's serious. Howard, then so are we. Start documenting assets. Freeze nothing yet, but stay ready. Me, you sound like a SWAT commander. Howard, trust me. Marriage law is a war zone. By evening, Clarissa had packed an overnight bag. Trent's picking me up tomorrow, she said. He wants to be there for support. Of course, he does, I said. Because nothing screams moral support like driving your lover's wife to surgery. She frowned. Don't make this ugly, Clarissa. I said, this stopped being pretty when you put another man's name next to the word family. That night, she slept in the guest room again. I could hear her phone pinging, probably Trent sending motivational memes. I lay awake thinking about how we got here. 15 years of teamwork, gone because she wanted a plot twist. At some point around midnight, I got up and went downstairs. The house was quiet except for the hum of the fridge. I opened my laptop and pulled up my notes from Howard. Step 1, stay calm. Step 2, collect evidence. Step 3, smile like nothing's wrong until the paperwork hits. So I started compiling screenshots, bank statements, texts, even my body, my choice, Pinterest board, because apparently in divorce court, irony counts as motive. The next morning, she came down humming like a woman heading to brunch. Not to reverse 5 years of reproductive decisions. She had a glow that made me suspicious. It wasn't joy, it was delusion. Wish me luck, she said. Good luck, I replied. Try not to confuse the doctor by mentioning Trent mid-surgery. She rolled her eyes and left with her suitcase. 5 minutes later, I called Howard. She's on her way. Perfect, he said. You ready to move? Move? File today. You'll have the upper hand while she's under anesthesia. Damn, Howard, I said. You make it sound like a heist. He laughed. Marriage law is a heist. The trick is to rob back what's yours. I grinned. Roger that. Before noon, I gathered every document I needed. Marriage certificate, property deed, bank records. I texted Clarissa one last time. Me, good luck with your surgery. Don't worry about the bills. You're officially independent now. Then I drove to Howard's office. He already had the paperwork printed, neatly stacked with tabs like a war plan. Sign here, he said. I signed. My hand didn't even shake. Congratulations, Howard said, shaking mine. You're about to become the proud owner of peace and probable revenge. I walked out of his office feeling lighter. Clarissa was probably in a recovery bed right then, dreaming of motherhood and Trent broke promises while I was dreaming of financial freedom in a silent house. When I got home, I poured myself a drink, toasted to my lawyer, and started mentally preparing for round 2 because something told me Clarissa wasn't done yet. She never was. Sure enough, my phone buzzed 2 hours later. Unknown number, I answered. Mr. Morrison, this is Janet Whitfield again, came that smug tone. You froze the joint account while Clarissa was in surgery. Yes, I said cheerfully. Timing's poetic, don't you think? That's financial abuse, she barked. No, I said. That's asset protection. Google it. Then I hung up. It was the first time in weeks I'd smiled without guilt. For the first time since the spaghetti showdown, I felt in control. Clarissa could chase her second chance with Trent all she wanted, but I was done funding reruns. The surgery might have reversed her tubes, but I just reversed the power. Friday morning dawned brighter than it had any right to be. Birds chirped, coffee smelled like optimism, and Clarissa was humming in the kitchen as if she hadn't just detonated our marriage with a scalpel and an ex-boyfriend. I sat at the dining table sipping my coffee, half expecting a film crew to jump out and tell me this was all a reality show experiment on emotional endurance. She was packing an overnight bag, carefully folding clothes into perfect delusional squares. Trent's picking me up in an hour, she said in that voice women use when they think they're announcing a royal engagement. He wants to be there for support. Support? I asked. From what? Carpal tunnel. It's a surgery, not a Broadway debut, she shot me a sharp look. You don't have to be sarcastic. This is a beautiful thing creating life. Beautiful, I said, stirring my coffee like a car crash in slow motion. She sighed, zipping up her bag. I know this is hard for you to understand. Oh, believe me, I said. I get it perfectly. You're driving off with your ex to undo the one good decision we ever made. Totally normal Friday. She paused mid-step. You don't have to make me feel guilty. Don't worry, I said standing and carrying my mug to the sink. You've got Trent for comfort. I'm sure he's great at emotional support or whatever support broke guys specialize in. Her face reened. You always think money solves everything. No, I said, but in this case, it definitely solves not living with a woman trying to get pregnant for someone else. She didn't reply. Just huffed and looked at her watch like she was late for an appointment with logic. Then the honk came. A weak embarrassing sound from outside. I peeked through the blinds and saw Trent's car, a faded red sedan that looked like it ran on disappointment and hope. I waved casually. Trent waved back awkwardly. Clarissa grabbed her purse, chin held high. "You're impossible," she said. "And you're consistent," I said, smiling. "Good luck, Clarissa. Really, try not to bleed on my upholstery when you get back." She glared at me one last time and stormed out, slamming the door hard enough to shake the picture frames. The sound was oddly satisfying. The moment she was gone, my fake smile dropped faster than the stock market during bad news. I turned off the coffee machine, grabbed my phone, and dialed Howard. "She's gone," I said. He didn't even say hello. "Good. You ready?" "Born ready," I said. At exactly 9 a.m., we filed for divorce. Electronic signatures, time-stamped, digital, and permanent like a tattoo of freedom. At 9:30, I froze the joint accounts. Clarissa had probably imagined herself recovering from surgery while I waited dutifully with soup and flowers. Nope. I was busy reassigning financial custody. By 10 o'clock, I'd opened a new checking account under my name only. The banker, a cheerful woman named Tessa, smiled and said, "New beginnings?" "You could say that," I replied. "It's like spring cleaning, but for emotional baggage and shared credit cards." At noon, I called the insurance company and changed the beneficiary from Clarissa to my brother Kyle. The agent on the line, bless her, asked if it was for security purposes, something like that. I said, "You could say my wife's about to start a new chapter, and I prefer not to appear in the footnotes." By 2, I was feeling invincible, like I just survived an emotional hurricane, and rebuilt with sarcasm and spreadsheets. I poured myself a drink, leaned back in my chair, and admired my handiwork. Then the phone rang. "Unknown number, Mr. Morrison, speaking. This is Janet Whitfield representing your wife, Clarissa Morrison," I groaned. "Of course. Hello, Janet. Lovely to hear from you again. Have you come to confess that your client's lost her mind? Or is this just the sequel?" She ignored my tone. "Did you freeze Clarissa's accounts while she was in surgery?" "Yes," I said cheerfully. "Timing's poetic, don't you think?" "That's financial abuse," she snapped. "No," I said, "that's asset protection. You might have read about it in that thing called the law. You can't leave her without access to funds while she's vulnerable." "She wasn't vulnerable when she planned to have another man's kid on my dime." I said, "This is what we call balance. You're risking serious consequences," I chuckled. "So is she, but only one of us filed first." There was silence. Then, grudgingly, "I'll be in touch." "Looking forward to it," I said, hanging up. I stood there for a moment, feeling a strange kind of peace. For the first time in weeks, I wasn't the one reacting. I was acting. And damn, it felt good. Around 4:00 p.m., my phone buzzed again. This time it was a text from Clarissa. "Clarissa, surgery went great. Feeling sore but happy. Trent was amazing. Me? Glad to hear. I filed for divorce. Feeling free but thirsty." She didn't respond for a while, but when she did, the message was a masterpiece of denial. "Clarissa, you're being impulsive. We can still make this work. I'll be home tonight." "Me? Take your time." I changed the locks. No reply after that. Just blissful silence. That night, I cooked myself dinner. Steak, mashed potatoes, the works. I poured a glass of bourbon, turned on some jazz, and toasted to self-preservation. "To me," I said aloud. "And to never sponsoring delusional fertility again." Halfway through dinner, the doorbell rang. I debated ignoring it, but curiosity won. When I opened the door, a delivery driver stood there holding a bouquet of roses. "For Luke Morrison, that's me," I said, signing the receipt. The note attached read, "For forgiveness and for love reborn, Clarissa." I laughed so hard I nearly spilled my drink. "Love reborn," I muttered. "Lady, the only thing reborn is your bad decision-making." I tossed the flowers straight into the trash. The next morning, my neighbor Dave, retired, nosy, and perpetually in his robe, caught me outside. "So, the MS out of town?" he asked, pretending not to pry. "Out of her mind," I said. He chuckled. "You two always seem solid." "Yeah, well," I said. "Turns out solid was just the foundation for a disaster." "Sorry to hear that, pal." I smiled. "Don't be. I'm finally getting the house back to one occupant who knows how to pay bills and not schedule surgery with her ex." He blinked. "That's specific." "Yeah," I said, heading back inside. "It's been that kind of month." By afternoon, I'd started cleaning the house. There's something therapeutic about vacuuming after emotional chaos. I gathered her things, clothes, toiletries, half-read self-help books, and piled them neatly in the guest room. I even labeled a box for the new parents. Then, I sat down, opened my laptop, and started updating passwords, email, streaming services, even the thermostat. I wasn't about to let Trent enjoy my Netflix subscription on movie night. Around 7:00 p.m., my phone buzzed again. "Howard, how'd it go?" he asked. "Smooth," I said. "Filed, froze, changed, secured." He whistled. "You work faster than my paralegals." "I work better under betrayal pressure," I said. He chuckled. "Well, keep your cool. She's going to explode when she gets home." "Oh, I'm counting on it," I said. "Let her rage. The papers are signed and the accounts are locked. The emotional part's over now, it's just math." He laughed. "That's the spirit." After I hung up, I sat in silence for a while, just listening to the hum of my empty house. It was peaceful, weirdly peaceful. No perfume clouds, no passive-aggressive sighs, no background soundtrack of You Never Listen. I realized then how much noise one person can bring into a life and how good it feels when that noise finally stops. Then around midnight, my phone pinged one more time. "Clarissa, I can't believe you do this while I was in surgery." "Me? Timing's poetic. Remember, Clarissa? I trusted you." "Me? You trusted me to pay for your ex's baby. That's on you." She didn't reply. Just sent a single broken heart emoji an hour later. I stared at it for a moment before turning off my phone. For the first time in months, I slept through the night without waking up angry or anxious. The calm had finally come. Not the kind born of peace talks or reconciliation, but the kind that follows after you detonate the bridge and watch the dust settle from the other side. And tomorrow, when she'd come home expecting sympathy and an open wallet, she'd find papers on the counter instead. Because sometimes the only way to stop the bomb is to detonate it yourself first. 3 days. That's how long it took for Clarissa to return. Sore, furious, and dramatically limping like she'd just survived a war instead of a reversible surgery. I was in the living room, feet on the coffee table, watching reruns of The Office when the front door burst open like a bad soap opera entrance. She stood there clutching her overnight bag in one hand and a bouquet of pity flowers in the other. "You froze our accounts," she shouted. "Good evening to you, too," I said, not looking away from the TV. "How's the uterus?" Her jaw dropped. "You think this is funny?" "Oh, absolutely not," I said, muting the show. "This is hilarious. You left for surgery with your ex-boyfriend, and now you're shocked that I didn't fund your romantic medical adventure. Shocking twist. You said follow your heart," she yelled, setting the flowers on the counter so violently they lost half their petals. "I did," I said, turning toward her with the calmness of a man who's already filed paperwork. "And you did." "I'm just following mine straight to the bank." She looked at me like I'd slapped her with an IRS notice. "You filed for divorce?" I smiled. "Filed, froze, secured. You know the trifecta," she stared, trembling. "You monster." "Monster," I repeated, standing up. "Clarissa, I'm not the one who decided to start a maternity project with a man who thinks an oil change is a metaphor for personal growth." She glared. "I can't believe you do this to me when I'm in pain." "Correction, I didn't do this to you," I said. "You did this to yourself with Trent's help and a scalpel." She pointed at the fridge. "My card didn't work at the clinic cafeteria. I had to borrow cash from Trent." "Good," I said, pouring myself a drink. "Consider it a test run for how life will look after this." Her face twisted with disbelief. "You're enjoying this?" "I'm enjoying clarity," I said. "It's refreshing to finally see what I married and to know I can fix it with a few legal documents and a new lock." She stomped over to me. Every step fueled by painkillers and audacity. "You'll regret this. I'll make sure everyone knows what you've done." "Perfect," I said, raising my glass. "Tell them I refuse to bankroll your fertility road trip. Maybe they'll start a GoFundMe. Help Clarissa chase nostalgia." Her lip quivered. "I loved you." "Yeah," I said softly. Past tense. Love doesn't come with a referral bonus for exes. She grabbed her purse and stormed into the kitchen. I thought she was leaving again, but no. She opened the freezer, saw the divorce papers sitting neatly on the counter beside a note that said, "For your review," and screamed like I'd candled Christmas. "What is this?" she shrieked, waving the papers like confetti. "Legal closure," I said. "Pairs well with betrayal. You can't do this." "I already did." Her eyes darted to the clock like she expected a cavalry. I didn't have to wait long to find out who she'd called. 30 minutes later, my doorbell rang and there stood the cavalry. Greta, her sister, Betty, her mother, and of course, Trent, Wearing sunglasses indoors because apparently embarrassment has UV sensitivity. I leaned against the doorway, grinning. Oh, good. The circus is here. Betty wasted no time. You're heartless, Luke. She's just had surgery. I nodded solemnly. And yet somehow she found the strength to drag her ex and half her family over here to lecture me. Greta chimed in. You froze her money while she was under anesthesia. That's called financial anesthesia. I said, very effective for emotional leeches. Trent stepped forward all puffed up like a dollar store superhero. Look, man, I get this is weird. Weird? I said, Trent, you tried to rekindle romance with a married woman and let her pay for the surgery out of her retirement fund. Weird doesn't cover it. He raised his hands. I just want peace, bro. Bro, I said, taking a step closer. You couldn't afford peace if it was on clearance. He flinched. Betty gasped. Clarissa stomped her foot. You're such a child, and yet, I said, I'm still the only adult in this room with a financial plan. Greta crossed her arms. She deserves support. She has it, I said. Trent's moral and emotional support are worth at least. Oh, wait. Nothing. Trent tried to speak again, but I cut him off. Trent, sit down. You're using more oxygen than you can afford. Even Betty snorted before catching herself. Clarissa screamed, stop humiliating him. I smiled. Oh, I'm not humiliating him. Life's been doing that for years. Trent straightened his sunglasses, mumbling. You think you're better than me? No, Trent, I said. I know I am. The evidence is right there in your 2006 Honda. That one landed hard. He shut up. Clarissa burst into tears. Dramatic as ever. I can't believe you're all laughing. I just had surgery. Then sit down. I said, you shouldn't be lifting your dignity this soon after anesthesia. Greta huffed. You're cruel. I'm practical. I said, you all came here thinking you could guilt me into funding her bad life decisions. Not happening. Betty's eyes narrowed. You'll die alone, Luke Morrison. I raised my glass again. Better alone than bankrupt Betty. That did it. They stormed out one by one. Clarissa last, sniffling, muttering about karma, promising I'd see what it feels like. When the door slammed shut, I exhaled the kind of breath you don't realize you've been holding for months. The house was silent again, peaceful. I picked up the divorce papers she'd left on the counter. Her tears had smudged part of the ink. I smiled, grabbed a pen, and circled the date at the top. Memorable Friday, I muttered, marking the day I dodged generational stupidity. Later that night, I texted Howard. Me? She came home, brought the entire cast of bad decisions. The reunion. Howard, did they sign anything? Me? No, but I got verbal confirmation that Trent's broke and Betty's delusional. Howard, document it. I laughed out loud. Howard, you're the kind of friend everyone needs during a marital apocalypse. Saturday morning, I woke up to 20 missed calls from Clarissa. I ignored them. Then she switched tactics and started posting online. Her Facebook status read, sometimes the person you thought would protect you turns out to be the villain. #new beginnings #healing journey. I replied with a like. Petty? Sure. Worth it? Absolutely. By noon, the neighborhood grapevine was buzzing. Mrs. Thompson from across the street stopped me while I was taking out the trash. Everything okay with you and Clarissa, dear? Just fine, I said smiling. She's pursuing creative projects. Oh, yeah, I said, unwriting history and rewriting her ovaries. Her mouth fell open. I walked away before she could process it. That evening, I decided to celebrate my regained independence. I grilled steaks, opened a bottle of whiskey, and played my favorite playlist, something other than Clarissa's eternal wellness vibes. Halfway through the second drink, I got another text. Clarissa, I can't believe you think this is over. You'll hear from my lawyer. Me? Already did. She hung up on me after I told her to Google financial boundaries. Clarissa, you're cruel and cold. Me? I prefer the term fiscally frostbitten. She didn't reply, but 10 minutes later, my Ring camera pinged. I opened the app and lo and behold, there she was on the porch trying her key. It didn't work. The look on her face when she realized it had been changed. Priceless. I watched silently as she banged on the door. Luke, open up. I didn't move. She pounded harder. You can't just lock me out of my own house. Correction, I muttered to myself. My house bought before marriage, titled under my name and blessed by Judge Common Sense. Finally, she gave up and stormed off. 15 minutes later, Greta posted on Instagram, some men show their true colors when you're at your weakest. #family #justice for Clarissa. Howard texted me the screenshot before I could even see it. She's going public, he wrote. Me? Good. Every comment is a free character witness for my defense. And I was right. The post blew up, but not in her favor. Her cousin Marcy commented, "Wait, didn't she cheat on him with that barista guy years ago?" Someone else replied, "And now she's with her ex again." Yikes. By midnight, the post was deleted. I slept like a baby. Sunday morning, I woke up to quiet sunlight, strong coffee, and the realization that the worst part was over. No more late-night arguments. No more passive-aggressive notes about the laundry. No more living with someone who thought chaos was character development. Just me, my house, and my freedom. I looked at the empty chair across from mine, where she used to sit during breakfast, tapping her phone, and pretending to listen. And for the first time, that silence didn't sting. It felt earned because when Clarissa followed her heart, she thought she was chasing love. But what she didn't realize was that I'd already followed mine right out of her story. And damn, it was the best trip I ever took. Monday morning started the way all modern disasters begin, with a notification ping. I was still in bed halfway through a dream involving peace and bacon when my phone buzzed like it owed me a rant. I blinked at the screen and saw the words that strike fear into any man's heart. Clarissa Morrison has posted a new status. Great. My ex-to-be had gone public. I clicked it because of course I did. There it was. A long self-righteous paragraph framed by pastel emojis and enough hashtags to choke a marketing intern. Some men can't handle when a woman chooses her own path. #MaBodyMe choice #healing after toxicity #brave not broken. Underneath were comments from her personal fan club, mostly yoga friends, old coworkers, and that one aunt who calls everything inspirational. The comment section was a war zone of misplaced sympathy. Stay strong, sis. Flexed biceps, medium skin tone, sparkling heart. You're glowing through the pain. Men never appreciate a queen. I was about to scroll past when I saw a familiar name pop up in the thread. My friend Tony, nicknamed Teeth, because his smile could blind satellites. Teeth commented, "Didn't her path lead back to Trent the unemployed?" Faced with tears of joy, asking for a friend, I laughed so hard I spilled my coffee. It was like watching someone set off fireworks in a yoga studio. Within minutes, Clarissa deleted the post. Guess enlightenment has limits when it comes to being roasted online. By noon, I figured I was in the clear. That's when my lawyer buddy Howard called, cackling. "You've gone viral on the family law forums." He said, "What?" He sent me a screenshot. Apparently, Clarissa's divorce attorney, Janet Whitfield, had filed an emergency petition for temporary spousal support. Translation: Clarissa wanted money for a life, she torched herself. She's demanding alimony, the house, and future child support, Howard said between laughs. Future? What? I said. She's not even pregnant. Yeah, he said, chuckling. That's a first for me. She wants financial support for hypothetical children she plans to have with another man. I might frame this petition. I rub my temples. Please tell me the judge will laugh her out of the courtroom. Oh, we're definitely getting a reaction, Howard said. Pack popcorn. The hearing was scheduled for Friday, but in true Clarissa fashion, she couldn't wait that long. Wednesday morning, she showed up at mediation with Trent in tow. I almost didn't recognize him. He'd clearly dressed for the part, wearing a wrinkled blazer, 2 sizes too big, and sneakers that had lost the will to live. Clarissa, meanwhile, strutted in like a martyr, her outfit screaming, "Respect me," while her expression whispered, "Pity me." The mediator, a weary man named Mr. Hoffman, who looked like he'd seen every brand of marital stupidity, sighed before we even started. "All right, folks," he said. "Let's try to reach a civil resolution." Clarissa folded her arms. There's nothing civil about abandonment. I leaned back. Clarissa, you weren't abandoned. You left emotionally months ago, physically last week, and financially the day you let Trent drive you to surgery. Trent cleared his throat. That's not fair, bro. We're all human. We make mistakes. Speak for yourself. I said, I make spreadsheets, not mistakes. The mediator held up a hand. Mr. Morrison, let's stay focused. Mrs. Morrison, you're seeking spousal support and partial ownership of the marital home, correct? Yes, she said. Shinhai. I sacrificed years supporting him while he built his career. I laughed out loud. You mean the years you spent binge-watching reality TV and calling it emotional labor? She glared. I kept our home. Yeah, like Airbnb. Guests came. Chaos followed. Nothing stayed clean. The mediator sighed. Mr. Morrison, Please. Fine, I said, crossing my arms. Let's get to the child support part. Who exactly am I supposed to be supporting? Clarissa smiled like a magician, revealing her trick. My future children, the mediator blinked. I'm sorry. I plan to have children with Trent, she said proudly, patting his hand. And I'll need help financially while I recover and adjust. The room fell silent. Even the clock on the wall paused out of disbelief. Finally, the mediator said, Mrs. Morrison, are you suggesting your current husband pay for your future children with another man? She nodded. It's only fair. I help Luke build his life. He can help me start mine. The mediator looked at me, then at Howard, then back at her like he was trying to confirm this wasn't a prank. Then perhaps, he said slowly. Mr. Garrison, he glanced at Trent, should support you. Trent, bless his confused soul, said, my art isn't about money. Howard nearly spit his coffee. Neither is my patience, I said. The mediator stood up, rubbed his forehead, and muttered, we're adjourned. I walked out of that building feeling like I'd just survived a master class in lunacy. Clarissa stormed past me to the parking lot, hissing, you think this is funny? Yes, I said. Tragically funny, like a clown car on fire. Trent jogged after her, mumbling something about energy alignment. I watched them go, shaking my head. Somewhere, Karma was taking notes. The next morning, Clarissa posted again. Apparently, she hadn't learned from the last digital fiasco. This time, she uploaded a selfie with Trent, her arm in his, captioned, love always wins. #fresh starts #new journeys. The comment section was brutal. Someone wrote, didn't she just have surgery last week? Another said, isn't that her married name still? Heath dropped another gem. She should # funereal alimony payments. It got 200 likes in 10 minutes. Clarissa deleted that one, too. Later that afternoon, she tried calling me twice. I let it go to voicemail. When I finally listened, she was crying. Luke, she said, voice cracking. You don't have to make this cruel. You know, I've always loved you. I just want to be a mother. I sighed for a moment. I almost felt sorry for her, almost. But then I remembered how she'd smiled when she said, Trent wants kids with me. And that pity evaporated like cheap perfume. I texted Howard. Me. She's playing the sympathy card. Howard, classic move. Stay quiet. Don't text her back. Me. Already didn't. Howard. Good. Let her dig her own hole. She's using Facebook as a shovel. By evening, my phone buzzed again. A new number. I picked up Luke Morrison speaking. This is Channel 9 News. We're running a segment on unconventional divorce cases. Would you be open to an interview? I blinked. You're kidding. Not at all. The reporter said, we found the filing fascinating, especially the clause about child support for unborn children from another relationship. It's quite groundbreaking. I grinned. Groundbreaking? Sure. Like a meteor hitting a trailer park. They laughed. So, can we quote you on that? Absolutely not, I said, hanging up. Still, I couldn't help chuckling. Clarissa had wanted to go viral for empowerment. Instead, she'd become a headline for delusion. The next day, I took a walk downtown, grabbed a latte, and scrolled through my phone. My feed was peaceful. No cryptic subtweets, no dramatic photo-oots, just blissful digital silence. Then, as if summoned by irony, my phone pinged again. Message from Clarissa. Clarissa, you think you've won, but you'll regret humiliating me. Me? No humiliation needed. You did all the heavy lifting. She didn't respond. Probably drafting another #manifesto. That night, I met Howard for drinks. He raised his glass. To you, Luke, the first man in legal history to dodge paying alimony for imaginary babies. I clinkied his glass to progress. We laughed, talked about old college days, and toasted to self-preservation. As I drove home later, the street lights blurred in my rear-view mirror. And for the first time in months, I felt light, untethered, like I'd escaped a cult I didn't realize I joined. I pulled into my driveway, the porch light flickering like a quiet applause, and thought about all the ridiculousness of the last few weeks, the Facebook posts, the hashtags, the courtroom circus. And somehow, amid the chaos, it hit me. Clarissa had given me the best gift ever, perspective. Because sometimes the line between love story and lawsuit is just one hashtag away and I wasn't about to get tagged again. If karma ever gave out medals, Clarissa would have taken gold in bad timing. Monday morning, I was halfway through a breakfast burrito when my phone buzzed with a text that read, "You changed the locks." I almost choked laughing. Of course I did, I typed back. "You changed the husband. Seemed fair. 5 minutes later, a car pulled into the driveway. Her car. Then a second one. Trent's rusty Honda Civic followed right behind, dragging its muffler like it was ashamed to be there. I didn't even flinch. I just sat on the porch with my coffee like I was hosting a live episode of The Real Ex-Wives of Suburbia. Clarissa got out first, dramatic as ever, wearing sunglasses the size of dinner plates, one arm wrapped in a brace like she'd just escaped a car crash. "You can't lock me out of my house," she yelled. I sipped my coffee. Correction, my house. Bought it before the wedding, paid every mortgage payment, and legally it's mine. You just contributed emotional chaos and scented candles. Trent got out next, puffing his chest like he thought he was auditioning for cops. "You heard her, bro. Let her in." "Trent," I said calmly. "You don't even have the right to be on my property. Technically, I could charge you for loitering and making bad life choices." Clarissa scoffed. "We'll see about that." And she wasn't kidding. She dialed 911 right there on the lawn like it was her personal customer service line. "Hello? Yes. My husband locked me out of my marital home. Yes, I live here. He's being emotionally abusive." I nearly choked. Emotionally abusive. I made coffee and ignored you. That's called self-care. 10 minutes later, a patrol car rolled up. 2 officers stepped out. The kind of guys who looked like they'd seen every brand of domestic circus imaginable. One of them glanced between us and sighed, already tired. "All right, folks. What's going on?" Clarissa launched into her story like a contestant on America's Got Lies. "He froze my accounts. He changed the locks. And now he's trying to leave me homeless." The officer turned to me. "Sir, is that true?" "Mostly," I said, "except the homeless part. She's got a new boyfriend right there. He can house her in his art studio or whatever magical treehouse broke people live in." Trent tried to speak, but the officer raised a hand. "Sir, please, one at a time." I handed over my folder, the deed, the prenup, and Howard's note with sole property, highlighted like divine scripture. "Here's the ownership, premarital asset. Lock for my safety after repeated harassment." The officer flipped through the papers, nodded, and turned to her. "Ma'am, this looks pretty clear. This isn't a criminal issue. It's civil. You'll need to take it up in court." Clarissa's face twisted. "You mean he can just keep me out?" "Yes, ma'am," the officer said. "For now?" "Yes," I smirked. "Would you like me to print you a copy of the keyhole for reference?" Trent muttered. "You think this is funny?" "I think it's educational," I said. "Welcome to adult consequences." Clarissa stomped her foot like a toddler denied ice cream. "You'll regret this." "Maybe," I said. "But at least I'll regret it from inside my house." As they drove off, I called Howard. "Round 1-1. She brought the cops." He laughed. "Let me guess. Officer told her it's civil." "Word for word." I said. "They even looked like they wanted popcorn." "Good. Now file for exclusive residence." "Done yesterday," I said, waiting for the hearing. "Well," Howard said, "she'll probably retaliate." And oh, did she? That evening, I came home from work to find a bright yellow notice taped to my door. "Temporary restraining order, pending hearing." I burst out laughing so hard the mailman across the street stared. I took a photo and texted Howard. "Called it." He replied, "Don't panic. They hand those out like candy." "What's she claiming?" I scanned the fine print. "Says I threatened her maternal destiny." There was a full 30 seconds of silence before his reply. "What the hell does that even mean?" "No idea," I said. "Maybe she's trying to trademark the phrase," he sighed. "Don't worry, we'll squash it." 2 days later, we were in court. Clarissa showed up in a maternity dress. Not pregnant, just dramatic. Trent was beside her in another one of his creative professional outfits, meaning the same wrinkled blazer and paint-stained jeans. The judge, an older woman who looked like she'd rather be golfing, stared at the paperwork for a full minute before saying, "Mrs. Morrison, are you currently expecting a child?" Clarissa beamed. "Not yet, but hopefully soon." The judge blinked. "With Mr. Morrison?" Clarissa's face lit up with that tragic optimism she was famous for. "With Mr. Garrison?" The judge slowly removed her glasses. "Then you can expect elsewhere." I swear I heard Angel sing. Howard leaned over and whispered, "Game set. House." The judge continued, "Restraining order denied. Exclusive residence granted to Mr. Morrison. Mrs. Morrison, you are ordered to vacate immediately and refrain from returning until further proceedings." Clarissa gasped. "He manipulated the system." "Ma'am," the judge said flatly. "The system's fine. You're just bad at it." Even Trent winced. When the gavel hit the block, I wanted to cheer, but I didn't. I just smiled calm and smug, the smile of a man who just won the emotional Super Bowl. Outside the courthouse, Clarissa turned on me. You think you've won, but this isn't over. Oh, it's very over. I said, you can't even pick a court outfit without delusion. You wore a maternity dress to a property hearing. Trent stepped forward, trying to puff himself up again. We're building a future, man. You can't stop love. Love? I asked. Trent, you're a 38-year-old man who paints beach sunsets for Instagram likes. You can't even stop your car from leaking oil, Clarissa gasped. You're cruel. No, Clarissa, I said. I'm free. They stormed off. I took a deep breath and looked up at the courthouse steps, sunlight hitting my face like divine approval. It felt like closure, or at least halftime in a very stupid game. When I got home, I changed the locks again just for sport, then ordered a pizza. Half pepperoni, half poetic justice. I watched a movie, laughed too loud, and slept better than I had in months. The next morning, my neighbor Dave came over with his coffee mug. Heard you won in court, he said. The whole block's talking about it. Small town rumor mill works fast, I said. Clarissa was outside your house yesterday crying and yelling about fertility rights, he said, shaking his head. The mailman filmed it. He's got like 2,000 views already. I grinned. Guess I'm finally internet famous. Dave chuckled. Man, you're handling this like a champ. Dave, I said after being married to that drama tornado courtrooms feel like spas. That weekend I got an email from Howard officially yours. Deed and title reaffirmed. Case closed for now. I poured a drink, opened the blinds, and looked around my house. My house. No emotional landmines, no background sighs, no toxic optimism, just quiet. But quiet never lasts. Monday morning, there was a knock at the door. I opened it to find Trent again. This time, holding a cardboard box. What is it now? I asked. He shifted awkwardly. Clarissa wanted me to get her stuff. I raised an eyebrow. Let me guess. She's too emotionally fragile to face the locks she doesn't own, he shrugged. I don't want to get in the middle, bro. Too late, I said, and handed him a neatly packed box I'd already prepared labeled Clarissa's bad decisions. He took it, confused. What's in it? Her leftover mail, some hair products, and a few unfinished dreams. He frowned. That's messed up, man. No, I said, closing the door. That's closure. Behind the door, I heard him mumble, weird, dude. Before his car sputtered away. I laughed. Weird or not? I was winning. And every win tasted like peace. Friday morning began with the soundtrack of chaos, honking cars, distant shouting, and the unmistakable voice of my soon-to-be ex-wife yelling about rights she didn't have. I took a long sip of coffee, savoring the calm before the inevitable circus. The movers were scheduled for 8 a.m., but Clarissa apparently decided to make it a spectator event. At 7:45, the parade arrived. Her sister Greta's SUV pulled in first, followed by their mother Betty's ancient minivan. And because the universe has a dark sense of humor, Trent's sad little Civic bringing up the rear duct tape holding his bumper together like an emotional metaphor. Clarissa hopped out of the front seat, waving her hands dramatically. We're here to collect my belongings, she announced as if I were supposed to salute. I nodded. Perfect. The boxes are ready by the door. Try not to take anything that belongs to reality. Betty stepped forward, holding her purse like a shield. You can't talk to her that way. She's been through trauma. Trauma, I said, raising an eyebrow. She had elective surgery and a delusional boyfriend. She's not a war veteran. Greta gasped. You're heartless. No, I said I'm healed. There's a difference. That's when I revealed my secret weapon. 2 off-duty cops I'd hired for the day standing on the porch sipping coffee. Officer Reynolds and Officer Jenkins. Good guys, no nonsense and definitely not in the mood for dramatics. Reynolds nodded politely. Morning, ma'am. We're just here to keep things civil. Clarissa blinked. See civil? You called the police. I shrugged. You called them last time. I figured I'd return the favor, but with snacks and supervision. Trent, ever the self-proclaimed peacemaker, stepped forward. Listen, man. Let's not make this hostile. We just want her stuff. Then let's do this quickly. I said, there's a pizza place 2 blocks down that delivers common sense. Maybe stop there on your way home. Greta rolled her eyes. We'll start with the TV. Reynolds cleared his throat. Ma'am, the TV is on the husband's property inventory. Clarissa pouted. We picked it together. Yeah, I said at Best Buy with my debit card. I even remember the day she wanted the one with the voice control because she said she was tired of pressing buttons. Funny how that became a theme in this marriage. Greta muttered. Wow. Petty, much petty. I said, no, Greta. Petty is me labeling her boxes Bad Decisions Volume 1 to 3. That got a snort from Jenkins. Even Reynolds cracked a smile. Clarissa pointed to my grandmother's antique dining set next. That's mine, too. I held up a receipt. Bought it at Grandma's estate sale with my money. But I helped pick it, she cried. So what? You also picked Trent, and I'm not claiming him. Trent started to say something, but stopped when Reynolds gave him a look that said, don't. Then came the real showdown, Clarissa's jewelry box. She lifted it like it was a trophy. These were anniversary gifts, she said triumphantly. Correct, I said. Gifts from me to you. Enjoy them. That's called closure. She blinked, confused. You're letting me keep something? Sure, I said. I'm not cruel. Besides, it's costume jewelry. I wouldn't want the pawn shop laughing at you and your boyfriend. Betty gasped. Luke Morrison, you are a vile man. Thank you, Betty, I said. I strive for consistency. Then, like a slow-motion scene in a bad movie, Trent reached for my flat-screen TV. I didn't even say a word, just nodded toward Jenkins. The cop's voice boomed. Put it down, sir. Trent froze. TV halfway off the wall mount. He looked like a toddler caught stealing cookies. I was just helping. Help by breathing less. I said. He obeyed, instantly setting it back. Clarissa whirled on me. You think you've won, don't you? Oh, I know I have, I said. You're the one moving out of a paid-off house into a borrowed apartment with a guy whose biggest investment is in vape pans. Greta muttered. You'll die alone. I smiled, probably, but surrounded by peace, good credit, and no Facebook posts with hashtags. Betty wiped fake tears. How can you be so cold? She's your wife. Correction, I said. She was my tax deduction. Big difference. Clarissa's face went red. You'll regret this when I rebuild my life. I raised my cup of coffee. Clarissa, if your life comes with a warranty, please make sure Trent reads the fine print this time. That's when she cracked. Full meltdown, she stomped. She cried. She even threw one of her scarves dramatically into the air. It fluttered down onto my porch like the flag of defeat. Reynolds sighed, taking notes. Ma'am, please calm down. He stole my future. She screamed. I crossed my arms. I didn't steal it. I just stopped financing it. Trent tried again because apparently he never learns. Look, man. We don't want drama. We just Trent, I interrupted. You showed up at another man's house with his wife, tried to take his TV, and are currently holding her purse. You're drama. Even Reynolds couldn't suppress a chuckle. After 2 exhausting hours, they packed what little she could claim, clothes, a few kitchen items, and that jewelry box. I handed her the final envelope, the official property settlement terms. She ripped it open, read the first line, and gasped. $73,000. That's it. That's it. I said, you get the cash. I get my sanity. Fair trade. That won't even cover the surgery, she shouted. Then consider it a cautionary tale, I said. She glared at me, tears streaming down her face. You're a terrible man, Luke Morrison. Maybe, I said. But I'm a free one. When the last box hit the backseat of Greta's car, I leaned against the porch railing and exhaled. Well, I said to Reynolds and Jenkins. Gentlemen, I appreciate the crowd control. Reynolds nodded. Seen worse. At least no one threw a shoe. Give it time, I said. And as if on cue, Betty hurled a heel toward me from the driveway. It missed by a mile, clattering harmlessly against the walkway. Jenkins laughed. You called that? I know my audience, I said. Finally, the cars rolled away, leaving a trail of exhaust and misplaced confidence. I stood there watching them go. The sun hitting my porch like a spotlight on the last act of a tragedy. I'd already survived. The silence that followed was beautiful. No yelling, no crying, no speeches about destiny. Just quiet. I went inside, poured myself another cup of coffee, and called Howard. It's done, I said. The Queen and her court have vacated. He chuckled. Any damages? Only emotional ones, I said. And those are covered by bourbon. Good man, he said. Now enjoy the peace before she finds a new hobby. My bet's on blogging about empowerment or suing yoga studios, I said. Wouldn't surprise me. When I hung up, I turned on my reclaimed flat screen. The reflection in the dark glass caught me off guard. Same guy, just lighter, like someone had peeled off 15 years of passive-aggressive guilt. I toasted my reflection with my coffee mug. To peace, I said aloud, and to the end of the circus. But just as I sat down, my phone buzzed again. A text from an unknown number. "You're going to regret treating her like this. She deserves better." I smirked. The area code was local. Probably Trent's mother or another volunteer from Clarissa's victim club. I typed back. "She does deserve better. Too bad she picked Trent." And with that, I blocked the number, silenced the phone, and turned back to my movie. For the first time in years, I watched a film from start to finish without hearing someone complain about the plot, the lighting, or how toxic masculinity ruins cinema. It felt like therapy, cheap, effective, and dramery. By midnight, I was lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the quiet hum of my freedom. The house felt lighter. The air smelled cleaner. Maybe it was the absence of Clarissa's essential oils. Maybe it was just peace. Either way, it was perfect. And as I drifted off to sleep, one thought kept echoing in my mind. I didn't lose a wife. I lost a liability. 3 days. That's how long it took for Clarissa's new happily ever after to start cracking like cheap foundation. I wasn't surprised. It was only a matter of time before the fairy tale turned into a cautionary podcast. But I didn't expect the first call to come from her sister, Greta, of all people. It was Tuesday evening and I was halfway through my steak when my phone lit up. Greta. Normally, I wouldn't have answered if the house were on fire, but curiosity beat caution. "Luke," she said, voice tight. "Greta," I said, "what an unpleasant surprise." "Don't start," she snapped. Look, they're living with me." I grinned. "You, Clarissa, and Trent, what a sitcom. What's it called?" "Three Losers and a Couch." "Don't be a jerk," she said. "I'm serious. He won't work and she keeps talking about baby names. She's not even pregnant." I nearly choked on my steak. "Oh, this is better than TV. Please go on." "She's losing it," Greta muttered. "She sits around all day watching fertility vlogs and crying. And Trent, God, he's been painting in my garage. Says he's working on a vision board for creative abundance. He owes me rent." "Greta," I said, trying not to laugh. "You invited them in. You bought the ticket. Enjoy the ride." "I didn't invite them," she hissed. "She showed up crying about you and how you stole her dreams. I didn't know she was bringing the clown." I laughed so hard I had to mute the call for a second. "Let me guess. Trent told you he just needed a few weeks to get on his feet." "Yes," she said. "He's been here 10 days and hasn't worn shoes once." "Sounds like progress," I said. "At least his feet are getting fresh air." "This isn't funny," Greta said. "You should see her. She's not the same. She's kind of delusional." I leaned back in my chair, swirling my drink. She was delusional before. Now she just has an audience. There was a long pause. "You don't care at all, do you?" I smiled. "Care, Greta? I cared for 15 years. Now I'm retired." She hung up. I spent the next 5 minutes laughing into my bourbon glass. An hour later, Howard called. "Got a message from Clarissa's lawyer," he said. "Let me guess. She wants more money." "Bingo. 50 grand to settle things amicably." I snorted. 50 grand. She should try GoFundMe like everyone else with bad decisions. "Could end it clean," Howard said. "You'd be free of her completely." I thought about it for a second, then shook my head. "Nope. She started this chaos. She can finish it. I'm not paying tuition for the school of consequences." Howard chuckled. "You've got a mean streak." "Call it a sense of balance," I said. "Every action gets a reaction. Hers just come with rent due." That night, I slept better than I had in months. Maybe it was the whiskey. Maybe it was knowing that karma was finally putting in overtime. The next morning, my peace was interrupted by another call. This time from a number I didn't recognize. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Luke," a soft voice said. "Depends who's asking." "It's Clarissa." I sighed. "Shouldn't you be too busy naming imaginary babies?" She ignored the jab. "I just wanted to talk calmly." "That's new." I said. "All right, you've got 30 seconds. "I'm struggling," she said. "Everything's hard right now, Trent. And I just need a little time to get settled. Maybe you could help." I laughed so loudly it startled her. "Help, Clarissa. I already helped. I didn't press charges when you stole half my peace of mind." "You're being cruel," she said softly. "And you're being predictable," I replied. "What do you need?" "Money, food, a therapist with industrial strength patience." She sniffled. Just some understanding, Clarissa. I said, I understand perfectly. You left a stable marriage for a broke artist who thinks acrylic paint is a retirement plan. I'm just not funding that understanding. Fine, she snapped. Enjoy your empty house. I am, I said cheerfully. It's quiet, clean, and doesn't cry over baby names. She hung up. Later that day, Greta texted me. You were right. He's useless. She's losing it. This is a nightmare. I replied, welcome to my last 3 years. Greta sent another message an hour later. He tried to sell one of her handbags for gas money. Artistic initiative. I texted back, man's a visionary. I didn't hear from her again that week, but the gossip traveled fast. By Thursday, the neighborhood grapevine, specifically my neighbor Dave, had updates. Heard from my wife that Clarissa is staying with her sister, he said, leaning on the fence. Apparently, she and that Trent guy keep fighting. I grinned. Can't imagine why. Nothing bonds a couple like shared delusion and financial collapse, Dave chuckled. You're cold, man. No, I said I'm free. It just looks like cold from a distance. That night, I poured myself a drink and thought about it. Clarissa had everything. Security, comfort, a husband who didn't cheat or gamble or vanish for weeks. And she traded it all for a man whose idea of ambition was an Etsy page that hadn't made a sale since 2018. You couldn't script a better downfall if you tried. Friday morning, Howard called again. She's desperate, he said. Janet just emailed me. Clarissa wants to negotiate privately. Says she's reconsidering everything. I laughed. Translation, Trent asked her to split the electric bill. Want me to schedule a meeting? Sure, I said. But tell her to bring Trent. I want to see what remorse looks like in sandals. The meeting was set for Monday. I spent the weekend polishing the house. Literally. There's no joy like cleaning a home free from chaos. I rearranged the furniture, added a few new photos of friends and family, even replaced the old rug she used to hate. It felt symbolic, every inch reclaimed. When Monday came, I wore my favorite suit and my best smile. They arrived 10 minutes late, looking like they'd lost a fight with reality. Clarissa's hair was messy, her makeup barely hanging on. Trent wore a shirt that said Dreamers Build Tomorrow and sneakers that should have been retired 2 presidents ago. Howard greeted them politely, but I didn't bother pretending. Clarissa, I said. Trent, welcome to adulthood. She frowned. I didn't come here to be insulted. Good, I said. Then this will be quick. Howard handed her the updated settlement terms. No changes. She skimmed them, her face falling. You won't even consider helping me get back on my feet. Clarissa, I said, I paid for 15 years of your stability. You used it to buy chaos. You're on your own 2 feet now. Use them. Trent looked up from his phone. She's been through a lot, man. I grinned. So have I. Differences mine doesn't involve painting motivational quotes on driftwood. Howard coughed, trying not to laugh. Perhaps we should adjourn. We did. Clarissa left in tears. Trent trailing behind like a lost puppy. When the door closed, Howard said, You sure about not taking the deal? 50 grand and it's done. I smiled. I don't negotiate with self-inflicted disasters. He raised his glass of water in mock salute. To the unbothered, to the unaffordable, I corrected. That night, Greta called again. She's back here. He left. I blinked. Left? As in, gone? Greta said took her last $500 and ran off with some yoga instructor from his art class. I burst out laughing. You can't make this up. She's devastated, Greta said. Keeps saying she should have stayed with you. I grinned. Finally, something we agree on. Don't gloat, Greta warned. I'm not gloating, I said. I'm celebrating karma's punctuality. Greta sighed. She wants to talk to you. Tell her to send a postcard, I said, hanging up. Then I poured myself another drink, sat back, and turned on the stereo. Jazz filled the house, smooth and effortless. Outside, the world kept spinning. Chaotic, dramatic, messy. But inside, peace. Pure uninterrupted peace. And I wasn't about to trade it for anything. Not love, not nostalgia, and definitely not a second round of Clarissa's fairy tale gone feral. Friday afternoon, the sun was shining, birds were chirping, and I was 3 sips into a perfectly good bourbon when I saw the shape of a familiar disaster marching up my office hallway. I didn't need to check the security feed. The way my receptionist's smile died told me everything. Clarissa was back. She burst through the door like she owned the place, wearing oversized sunglasses and fake confidence. I'm pregnant, she announced, arms crossed like she just won a debate. I stared at her for a long moment, waiting for the punchline. When it didn't come, I leaned back in my chair. It's been 3 weeks, Clarissa. What did you use? Express shipping. Her jaw tightened. The doctor said, it's possible. Sure, I said. So is time travel, but I don't see you in a DeLorean. She ignored me. I'm serious, Luke. I'm pregnant and I need your help. I raised an eyebrow. Help? What kind? Emotional, financial, or comedic relief? Because I'm fresh out of the first two. She slammed her purse onto my desk. You're not funny. This is your responsibility, too. I blinked. Mine? Clarissa? We haven't been within 6 feet of each other since the great spaghetti betrayal. I'm not Jesus. I don't do immaculate conceptions. Her voice cracked. You think this is easy for me? Trent left. He couldn't handle the pressure. I smirked. Pressure of what? Paying rent? Holding a job? Basic hygiene? She glared. You're cruel. I'm observant. I said, so, let me get this straight. You had surgery 3 weeks ago. Your boyfriend bailed. And now you're telling me you're pregnant. What's next? Virgin births and crowdfunding. Her lips trembled. The baby's innocent. I nodded slowly. So is my checking account, and I intend to keep it that way. She gasped like she expected me to leap across the desk with a declaration of eternal support. Instead, I poured myself more bourbon. Clarissa sniffled. I thought you'd at least care. Care? I said. You spent months treating me like your financial plan B, Clarissa. Now that plan A is gone, you're suddenly sentimental. She looked down, voice shaking. I made mistakes. I leaned forward. You made a PowerPoint of mistakes. Multiple slides with animations. For a moment, she said nothing. Then she pulled something from her purse. A sonogram photo. I blinked. How the hell? She sniffed. Early scan. I squinted at it. Clarissa, that looks like static. You sure that's not a picture of your self-awareness? Her face hardened. You're impossible. And you're still lying? I said, but hey, thanks for stopping by. My lunch break's over and I've got actual adults to meet with. She didn't move. You can't ignore me forever. I can't, I said. And I'm very good at it. That's when my security guard, Daryl, a 6 feet 4 inches ex-Marine with the patience of a monk, appeared at the door. Everything all right, Mr. Morrison? Just fine, I said. Mrs. Morrison was just leaving. Clarissa's eyes went wide. You're throwing me out. I smiled politely. Technically, Daryl's doing that. I'm just supervising. Luke, please, she cried. Don't do this. Do what? Enforce boundaries. Oh, no. Call Oprah. Daryl held the door open. Ma'am. Clarissa stomped out, muttering something about karma. When she was gone, Daryl grinned. Damn, boss. That was intense. Yeah, I said, finishing my drink. She came in pregnant and left embarrassed. I call that labor pain. He laughed. You want me to block her number again? Already done, I said, tapping my phone. For the rest of the day, I tried to focus on work, but my brain kept replaying the absurdity. Pregnant? 3 weeks post-surgery? Drink on. It sounded less like a relationship and more like a limited-time scam. By evening, I was back home grilling steak on the patio when my phone buzzed again. Unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered, Luke, it's Greta. Oh, good. I said, tell me it's about the apocalypse and not your sister. She hesitated. Clarissa is saying you humiliated her at your office. I didn't humiliate her. I said she humiliated herself by showing up with a fairy tale pregnancy and an expired soba story. Greta aside, she's not doing well. She won't stop crying. Keeps saying she's scared. I rolled my eyes of what? Reality. She needs help. She needs a time machine. Luke, Greta, listen, I said, cutting her off. I gave that woman 15 years of stability. She traded it for chaos. I'm not swooping in because she finally realized her circus doesn't have a safety net. Greta was quiet for a moment. You've changed. No, I said, I just stopped auditioning for the role of nice guy who gets screwed. She sighed. You really don't care anymore. Not in the way you think. I said, I wish her peace. Preferably far, far away from me. When I hung up, I felt oddly peaceful. Maybe this was what emotional closure looked like. Less dramatic than expected, more satisfying than revenge. But then 2 weeks later, my phone buzzed again. This time it was Greta. The message read, false alarm. Period. I read it twice, then laughed so hard I spilled my drink. Of course, the miracle that wasn't. I forwarded the text to Howard with the caption, "Told you it was nonsense." He replied instantly. "You called it. Woman's writing her own soap opera. It's not even a good one." I texted back. "Low budget, bad acting." That night, I got home to find a letter in my mailbox, handwritten. The envelope smelled faintly like her perfume. Expensive regret and lavender. Against my better judgment, I opened it. "Luke, I'm sorry for everything. I was scared. I wanted to feel wanted again. Trent lied. I made mistakes, but I didn't deserve this much hate. Maybe one day you'll remember the good years, and forgive me, Clarissa." I stared at it for a while. The handwriting was shaky, dramatic loops on every Y, smudges where tears had fallen, or maybe spilled wine. Either way, it felt like a chapter closing. I folded it neatly and slid it into a drawer right beside the divorce decree. Then, I poured a drink, turned on some music, and toasted to irony. "Here's to Clarissa," I said aloud. "May her next miracle come with better math." A few days later, Howard called again. "So, she's dropped the pregnancy story," he said. "Yeah. Apparently, she and biology had creative differences." He chuckled. "Any new drama?" "Not yet," I said. "But give her Wi-Fi and wine, and I'm sure we'll see a Facebook essay soon." We both laughed. The next week, Greta called again, her voice oddly calmer. "She's talking about getting therapy," she said. I nodded to myself. Good. Maybe her next relationship will involve less surgery and more sense. She wanted me to tell you she's sorry. I bet she does. I said, "Tell her I accept from a distance." "Maybe you two could." "Greta, if you finish that sentence, I'm blocking you." She sighed. "You're impossible." "I'm peaceful." I corrected. Huge difference. That night, I sat on the porch, bourbon in hand, thinking about how full circle everything had come. Clarissa wanted a new beginning. She got one, just not the fairy tale she imagined. Her miracle had turned into a memo from reality. And for once, I wasn't the punchline. I wasn't angry anymore, not even bitter, just done. The kind of done that comes after a storm when all you can do is look at the wreckage, nod, and say, "Well, that happened." Maybe somewhere down the road she'd actually figure herself out. Maybe she wouldn't. Either way, it wasn't my story anymore. And as far as I was concerned, that was the real miracle. 2 months later, the dust had finally settled. The paperwork was done. The court stamps were dry, and the house no longer echoed with the ghost of Clarissa's complaints about emotional availability or spiritual alignment. What it did echo with, though, was laughter. My laughter, because every time I thought back on the absurdity of it all, I couldn't help but grin. Clarissa walked away with $73,000 and I walked away with my sanity. Honestly, I got the better deal. She thought she'd ruined me, but all she did was renovate my peace. The first morning after the divorce was finalized, I made coffee in a kitchen that finally felt mine again. No scented candles labeled empowerment. No passive-aggressive sticky notes about recycling energy. And no Trent lounging on my couch pretending existential dread counted as a hobby. Just silence, caffeine, and the faint smell of victory. My brother Kyle called that afternoon. "So it's official. You're free." "Free?" I said, pouring bourbon into my coffee just because I could. "Judge signed it. Lawyers toasted it. And the devil collected his client." Kyle laughed. "What's she up to now?" "Still chasing fertility dreams with Picasso the Broke." "Better," I said. "Trent ran off to Costa Rica with her baby fund." He coughed mid-laugh. "You're kidding." "I wish," I said. He took $5,000 and a promise of eternal love, then disappeared faster than her common sense. Kyle whistled. "And what did she do?" "Called me at 2 in the morning, I said, sobbing like a telenovela villain. "Said he left me, Luke. He took everything." Kay burst out laughing. "And what did you say?" I told her. Who could have guessed? "Oh, right, me." Then I hung up and went back to sleep. That was 2 weeks ago, and I haven't heard from her since. Well, unless you count the Christmas card she sent last night. The envelope was shiny gold with glitter that looked like it was designed to make my carpet hate me. The front said, "Thinking of better times, maybe new chances." I opened it against my better judgment. Inside was a photo of Clarissa in a Christmas sweater standing beside a sad little tree. No Trent, no Greta, no baby bump, just her and regret, both looking tired. The note read, "Hope you're doing well. I've been reflecting. Maybe someday we can talk again." I snorted so hard I nearly spilled my drink. Talk again. What was left to say? "Hey, remember when you tried to crowdfund a pregnancy and got scammed by your soulmate?" I tossed the card into the fireplace. Here's to new chances, I muttered as it burned. A few minutes later, my phone buzzed. Greta, again, don't tell me she's outside, I said. No, Greta sighed. But she still thinks you might take her back. I tried telling her you've moved on, but she says you always had a soft spot for redemption stories. Yeah, I said, in movies, not in mortgages. Greta laughed quietly. She's working part-time at some yoga studio now. Keeps talking about finding herself. Well, I said, I hope she uses a map this time. There was a pause. You know, Luke, I'll give you this. You handled all of this better than most men would have. Greta, I said, after you've been called heartless, controlling, and financially abusive in 1 week. You learn to find humor in it. It's cheaper than therapy. She laughed softly. I guess that's one way to survive. Survive? I said, Greta, I'm thriving. I even got my weekends back. You know how long it's been since I had a Saturday without drama? Probably the honeymoon, she said. Exactly, I said. Now I spend my Saturdays doing what happy people do, nothing. And it's glorious. After we hung up, I poured myself another drink and went to sit on the porch. The sun was setting, gold spilling across the lawn, peace hanging in the air like a promise I'd finally kept to myself. Sometimes I still catch myself replaying moments with her. Not the fights, but the small, stupid ones. The time we tried to assemble IKEA furniture without killing each other. The night she made spaghetti and dropped the sauce, but laughed until she cried. Those moments sting, but only for a second because I remember what came next. The lies, the gaslighting, the absurdity of hearing. I'm getting my tubes untied because my ex wants kids. It's amazing how memory edits itself once you escape the fog. I used to think divorce was failure. But now I see it differently. It's not failure, it's graduation. You just don't get a cap and gown. You get silence and a stack of signed papers. A week later, I ran into someone unexpected at the grocery store. Greta again. Only this time, she wasn't calling. She was shopping, looking exhausted. You won't believe this, she said before I could even say hello. Clarissa is writing a book. I blinked. A book? She says it's a memoir about rebirth and resilience. Working title Untied. I laughed so loud people turned to stare. Tell her to put me in the acknowledgements. Maybe under financial donors. Greta grinned despite herself. You're incurable, just accurate, I said, tossing coffee beans into my cart. Hey, if she publishes it, I might buy a copy. Seriously? Yeah, I said. Be nice to see fiction get the attention it deserves. We both laughed, and for the first time since the whole fiasco began, it didn't feel bitter. It felt finished. By the time I got home, my phone buzzed again, Howard this time. Hey, my guy, he said. Heard you're officially done with the Morrison case. Done, dusted, and delivered. I said, you still drinking that overpriced whiskey? Always, he said. Let's celebrate. Drinks on me. That night, we met at our usual spot. A dim bar with terrible music and great burgers. Howard raised his glass. To freedom, to peace, I said. To women who teach us lessons we didn't ask for, he added. I grinned. And to lawyers who make sure we never pay tuition twice. We clinkied glasses, and for a few hours I forgot the chaos. Later, as I drove home, the city lights glowed against the night sky. I thought about Clarissa, about Trent, about the insanity that had taken over my life for a while. And then I smiled because none of it mattered anymore. Peace isn't loud. It doesn't announce itself with hashtags or declarations. It just shows up quietly, sits beside you, and reminds you what calm feels like. And maybe that's the punchline of it all. After years of drama, you learn that happiness isn't fireworks, it's silence. When I got home, I turned off my phone, poured one last drink, and stood in front of my window, watching the lights flicker outside. I raised my glass to the reflection of a man who'd survived ridiculousness and come out laughing. To following your heart, I said, echoing my own words from that fateful pasta night. But this time, making sure it has a brain. The bourbon burned on the way down, warm, sharp, real. The next morning, I woke up early, made pancakes, and realized I hadn't thought about Clarissa once while I flipped them. That I decided was progress. As I sat on the porch eating breakfast, a text came in from Greta. She's moving out of state. Says she needs a fresh start. I smiled. Good for her, I replied. Tell her I hope she finds what she's looking for. Preferably far away. Then I put my phone down and just listened to the birds, the breeze, the sound of my own unbothered existence. The war was over. The Queen had abdicated and the jester, me, had finally found peace in the punchline.